Greetings Yoshi players, this is Yoshi Player here, and before I actually get started with this video, I'd like to make a quick apology for my bit of a hiatus that I've had throughout September. I've been recovering from a fever, I haven't really had a lot to do since I've been focusing on trying to recover, but at this point in time, I'm feeling a lot better. I did a live stream a few weeks ago, so I figured now's a good time to get back into doing some reviews, and considering it's almost Halloween, I think this was the perfect opportunity for me to start my very first Let's Tackle Halloween month. Title patent pending. To be honest, I've never really done an annual month for my channel before. Maybe I'll do more in the future, you never know. For all we know, as successful as this month can be, I may end up doing more Halloween videos next year, and the year after that, and continuously moving on. So I was going through my list of ideas on what I should talk about this month, and I figured, hey, I love Halloween, I love the PS1, I love Muppets. It's just a bizarre coincidence that most of those elements turned into a video game. And I'm gonna talk about it. Now, the weird thing about me is that even though I am a huge fan of the Muppets, I've never actually played any video game about the Muppets. This game came out in the year 2000, and I think I vaguely remember playing a little bit of this game when I was a kid, but I can't properly remember. The Muppets are all going to a haunted castle in the middle of a forest to accompany Dr. Honeydew in the reading of his late uncle's will. Most of the Muppets are there, including Kermit's nephew, Robin. As soon as the Muppets turn up at the location, though, a mysterious figure appears at the front door, causing Robin to faint. When he wakes up, he discovers that he, along with Honeydew, Beaker, and Pepe the King Bron, sorry, I love saying his name like that, have all been hiding in an underground lair, as most of the Muppets have been captured and turned into monsters by evil energy. Robin is accompanied with a power glove, I hope it's one that actually works, and ventures off to rescue all the Muppets before they're turned into monsters for good. A very basic story when it comes to both Muppets and 3D platformers. I can't say I was really expecting much out of it. I mean, most 3D platformers I played don't really have that deep story arcs in them, unless you're playing something like Crash to Insanity, but even then, that game's story wasn't that deep. I guess the only real noteworthy thing to say about this plot is that it all turned out to be a dream, although it couldn't be a dream. The game's never really clear on that, but it doesn't really matter to me. I'm here for the actual game itself, and in that case, let's talk about it. If my comments before weren't obvious enough, Muppet Monster Adventure is a 3D platformer, more so in the vein of 3D collectathons, kinda like Spyro the Dragon and Banjo-Kazooie. You collect things to advance to the next level, do several minigames to earn said items, and travel around while defeating enemies, activating switches, solving puzzles, and all that kind of stuff. The controls are pretty simple. You can run around and jump like any other 3D platformer, you can attack enemies in 2 different ways, and use a sprint button to run faster. I don't really get why I have to press a separate button for a sprint command. I thought you could naturally do that within gameplay. I mean, other games have managed to do it just fine, so why is it applicable here? And also, it really begins to seem like Robin is trying to copy the similar art style from Banjo-Kazooie and how he's running around, and he's got a backpack on him. I wonder if there's a bat living inside. So yes, the controls are mostly simple for a 3D platform in this type of way, and for a PS1 game, I didn't expect much out of it, but unfortunately, while I find the controls to be simple to master, I also find Robin to be completely unreliable to control. His standard movement is fine, but I still don't understand what's the need for a sprint button. On top of all that, I find his jump to be harder to control. I mean, not only does he have a pretty shitty jump arc, especially considering that he is a frog, but whenever you maneuver in mid-air, he doesn't quite position himself properly. It's not like Spyro the Dragon where you can easily move yourself in mid-air. Every time you move in a certain direction, he'll often steer towards that direction, which often led me to dying quite a few times in certain stages. Throughout the first few levels, you'll find a few tokens that will help Robin unlock new abilities, such as gliding, climbing, swimming, karate chopping, and lifting heavy objects. If you find 4 within the respectable monster, then you immediately unlock that ability. But I find it kind of funny that Robin has to learn how to swim. I guess he really does suck at being a frog. Out of all these power-ups, the only one I found the most reliable was the gliding ability. That's not too surprising considering how it can help me cross shortcuts and complete levels a lot faster, but once again, much like the jump, I find it slightly unreliable. As for the rest of the power-ups, while I find them to be neat implications, they unfortunately break the pace of the game. Every time you want to perform these power-ups, you have to stop what you're doing and press the triangle button to execute them. But there's no way you can do this while on the move. If you want to climb, you have to stop what you're doing and climb. You can't even climb while you're in mid-air of a jump. You have to do it when you're only standing on the ground. The karate chop animation is even worse, since I have to sit through this animation before I can progress. I thought the swimming would be fine, but even this has its problems, because like I said, you have to wait for an animation before you can actually start swimming, and it's not as reliable as how you can do it in Spyro. And in that game's case, as soon as you started swimming, you were already in the action. Just press the square button, go underwater, and you're all set. Which is why, as I play through most of this game, I realize that it's starting to feel more like a game that's geared more towards really little kids. I mean, this is the Muppets after all. But I felt like they could have included a little bit more speed in there for those hardcore gamers like myself. Throughout each level, you'll find two main collectibles, Dark Energy and Muppet tokens. The Dark Energy being stars for some reason? Is this game trying to tell me that Patrick Star was evil this whole time? And Muppet tokens, which you usually find by opening up special chests, or just finding them in random levels, or by simply just completing a minigame. The minigames themselves aren't too special. Some require you to use your abilities and some are races, but that's really about it. And I'm going to be upfront here. If you're going to be playing this game normally, you better prepare yourself to collect most of those items, because this game is surprisingly strict for a 3D platformer, especially one for kids. In order to unlock new levels and boss fights, you have to collect a certain amount of Dark Energy and tokens. This isn't too bad, as this is usually the standard when it comes to 3D platformers, but like I said, it's strict. How in that regard? You need to find a lot of items, because for the first level I decided to collect all of the items, but to my horror I discovered that the levels could only be unlocked at a very strict number. I was barely above the required amount that I actually needed, which can make this game pretty strict and unforgiving to play. Plus, it doesn't help that while I find this game looking nice for the most part, a lot of levels just come off as forgettable and really boring. Especially when you start going through those collectathon stages, that the game just doesn't become very fun to play. Hell, even the music I find painfully average, and it sucks because this soundtrack was composed by Michael Giacchino, who's one of my favorite composers when it comes to animated films, as he did movies like Up, The Incredibles, Inside Out, and Coco. Though, on the positive side of things, the voice acting's good. I can definitely tell it's the same actors that perform the Muppets in real life, and they sound pretty good. And I gotta be honest, it's really great hearing Jerry Nelson's voice again. The boss fights are pretty pathetic. I thought from first glance they were gonna be decent boss fights that required a bit of thinking and challenge, but nope, the game blatantly tells you what you're supposed to do to defeat them, which kind of proves my point that this is more of a casual 3D platformer that's geared way towards really little kids. And that's really all I can say about Muppet Monster Adventure. I apologize if I didn't have a lot to say on this game, but when I've already reviewed games like Spyro the Dragon, I want to focus more on the unique side of platformers. And while I don't find Muppet Monster Adventure to be a particularly bad game, I just don't find it a very fulfilling or enjoyable game in the long run. It's not horrible, I've definitely played a lot worse, but for a 3D platformer for the PS1, I think there are better options out there. I really did want to get most of my time out of Muppet Monster Adventure, but at the end of the day, I think the game is just okay. Not great, not bad, just okay. I tell ya, it does actually feel kind of awkward doing these really short reviews. Like, I expect myself to go more in depth with these kind of games and talk more about them, but when you've already reviewed games like Spyro, it's almost hard to think of what to actually say about it. But the good news is that at least this won't be the only video I'm doing for Halloween month. Thank you guys so much for tuning in for this first episode of Halloween month, and keep on playing.